So next we're going to hear more about urban design aspects of walkability and livability from Jim Huffman. He has been with Busby, Perkins, and Will for over 21 years, working on urban planning, commercial, and residential design projects for both public and private interests. Jim applies his skill in design from large-scale master planning through to specific building elements. His expertise has been instrumental in the success of numerous planning and development projects, including the LEED Platinum Dockside Green development in Victoria, which is a global showcase for large-scale sustainable development. Jim has also led several of the firm's most innovative commercial and cultural projects. Jim was design principal at Telus House, a highly sustainable office revitalization in Vancouver, with an adjoining feature atrium space that recently won the 2008 Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia Award for Excellence in Architecture. Mr. Huffman will be presenting Walkable Design for Sustainable Dockside Green. Mr. Huffman, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you all for being here. I'm sorry I didn't walk tonight. It's a bit much. I'm going to take a little different tack in my talk. I'm going to start a little bit of doom and gloom. There's a big problem out there called global warming, and a big part of it is automobiles. And so if we can reduce automobiles use, then you've obviously got a lot more room for your vehicle or for your bicycle lanes, not just bicycle paths, and also for pedestrians. So, where's that? This is the Kyoto Accord was signed in 1990. The United States didn't sign it, but most of the major countries in the world did. You can see that most of the European countries are trying to get to the goal at 2010, but Canada and the United States are going off to a Richter scale, spending energy on all kinds of things. And a big part of it is the way our cities are designed. They're all designed around cars and vehicles, and we need to change that thought. So here's basically a range of various cities in North America, what their carbon footprint is per person. You can see the U.S. average, and the second line up there is way up at 24.4 tons of CO2 per person. Canada isn't much different. Here down in Seattle's much better at 12.4, and Vancouver, I don't know why we're so low, but we're down at 5. But the goal really is, Oslo is at a really nice 2.5. And that is what the experts feel is what every city should be aiming for to make sure that we don't have a huge calamity on our hands, so that my 11-year-old daughter doesn't have to worry when she gets older. Well, you can see there are some major big cities there that have fairly low CO2 footprint. You know, Mexico City is one of the biggest cities in the world. Obviously, they are, it's a poor country, poor city. They have a lot more transit. There's a huge transit system there, and a lot less cars. So there's some reasoning for these things. But what I'm going to do now is present, there's a quick scheme that we did to try to get Vancouver down to 2.5. And then in the next 20 years. And then I'm going to show this project in Dockside, which is sort of you will see that it follows on from the Vancouver study. But then this just shows what makes up most of the GHG per capita use in the world. 54% is buildings. We're not really talking about buildings much tonight, although in the project we're working on, we'll be able to get that down significantly. 30% is transportation. That's all kinds of transportation. If you all buy hybrid cars, that's going to be 29.999. The hybrid cars isn't the solution. The solution is rapid transit, changing the city design so that you don't need to get in your car. And so that means either walking and having communities where you can walk to work, walk to your library, walk to your fitness club, whatever, or take your bike. We need to change our zoning and urban design so that we don't need to get into cars. Make it so that cities aren't designed around cars. So this is Vancouver now. You can see the red bit is the dense peninsula where there's lots of high-rise residential and business. It's actually, I think this is why Vancouver's done quite well, because there's a lot of residential in the downtown core. So a lot of those people are walking back and forth to work. The yellow is mid-rise density. So those people, like me, I'm in that yellow somewhere. I walk to work across the bridge downtown, but a lot of people are taking transit or could be biking. That's a half-hour walk max. All the people out in the gray area there, that's single-family housing. They're all getting in their cars and going somewhere because there's hardly any business in those areas. So they're either going further out the valley or into the middle of the city or across one way or the other. So all those people are using primarily their vehicles. There's not a great transit system. There's a little flicker. There's a transit system right now that goes out towards the next community, Burnaby, over here. And there is a new transit system, rapid transit system, coming out to the airport that'll be done in the next year. There are a few high-speed bus lines, but the rest is just very minimal bus service. So anyone out here can't just hop on a bus and go over there. It's really difficult. So this needs to change. So this really tells you the GHG footprint for each area. So how can we do it? There could be the cyclists, what I call the urban guerrilla cyclists. They can go, that's about 5 or 6 miles. They put on their funny shoes and do all this kind of stuff. But that's only the 1 or 2%. We need to deal with this so that we get the other 60% or so out onto their bikes comfortably. This should be something that people feel really easy to do. It's not something that's a chore. The urban guerrilla bikers, they're committed. There's no way we're going to change them. They love it and they fight for it. So this is a diagram down one of the transit corridors. The idea would be that there'd be a grid of either rapid transit or high-speed buses that would have infrequent stops. And so you would create village nodes all the way along rather than having, this is in that gray area. So these would have higher densities. They would have all of the amenities that any town should have. So instead of the center part of the city in the next 20 years growing, just slowly moving out, the idea is creating a whole bunch of villages to augment that. In the next 20 years, by 2030, Vancouver's population is going to increase by 50%. That's a huge amount of people that we have to deal with. We can't just deal with it by slowly moving the center out of it. We need to deal with it on a bigger level. So by creating these villages, people can then work within the villages. You can get old, seniors will be there, there'll be fitness areas, there'll be shops, everything will be there so that you can do what you need in that area. If you need to go somewhere else, then you get on rapid transit. Vancouver is hilly, just like Seattle, so biking long distances is good for some people, but it's just not going to work for everyone. So you need to be able to give them the ability to walk and bike locally, and then get somewhere else on a faster mode of, an easier mode of transport. There's a huge amount of money spent on infrastructure to keep our cars going. It's silly. If we took that infrastructure and put that into rapid transit, took out 2 lanes of every street and made it into some rapid transit for buses, the amount of saved energy would be enormous. So this is how one of those nodes is existing. There's a bunch of 2-story commercial probably with little residential on top, and then the rest is all single-family housing around it. So the idea is that largely single-family, minimal commercial activity. So the idea is to start going in this direction, where you would have buildings that could be 6, 8, 10 stories tall, that would gently flare down to get back to the single-family residential area, but it would become more of a village. Think of Greenwich Village or Hampstead Village in London, Greenwich Village in New York, those kind of spaces that are really great down at the street level, yet still have really unique places to be once you're into the building. And they have their shops. You don't have to go anywhere. They're very quiet spaces. And the one thing I like is the aging in place. You don't have to go off to some nursing home out, in a cheaper neighborhood. You stay where you are, where you're friendly, where your friends are, where you know things, you're comfortable. So this is the idea in 2030. I think it's 2030 on here somewhere, but the idea is that now the center core, the red area, has grown slightly. Some nodes have actually gotten fairly dense. And then there's a whole series of these nodes that are along the major transit area that are the villages that then are connected with the more rapid transit. So then you can see, I think this went from 7 to 4, this went from 3 to 2, and this went from, I think it was 0.5 to 1. It's gone up because there's obviously more of it, so it's using more energy. But then the overall average is 2.5. So and these figures have been worked out with a series of consultants in different meetings, so we're confident that it's a reasonable projection. Now, Vancouver started at a fairly decent situation. There's some big cities all across North America. Calgary in Canada is one of the worst. It's just a small bunch of office towers in the middle and then piles of houses. And they've got a huge issue because land just seems, there's no trees there. The land just goes on forever. It's easy just to build another street. They got to change the way they're doing if we're going to have any reasonable way of dealing with global warming. It's a big issue. So let's get on to how we can work that out and make it work fine. So this is a project in Victoria. I think you hopefully have been there. It's a very cute town. It's not all that big. I don't know what the population is. It's maybe 150,000, 200,000 people, but it's the capital city of the province of BC, so there's a lot of important buildings in there. And so there's a fair amount of money spent on infrastructure. This is the downtown, the site is this piece here. You can see we put a couple of rings around. There's a 5-minute walk and there's a 10-minute walk. So you can come across a bridge and you can get into the downtown area. I think the next slide. Yeah, so this is the major downtown area. There's a big hotel here, the Parliament Building, and then there's lots of shops in this area. So it's in a really neat location that way. There's earlier someone mentioned the Galloping Goose Trail. I think it's named after, there was a train route that used to go up Vancouver Island, and so this follows the old train route. Is not there anymore, but the flat trail is. So it connects right into the downtown through the sites. And then there's a series of seawalls that connect into that as well, so you could actually continue walking or cycling along there. And the same happens on this shoreline as well. So it's well served cyclist-wise on the site. And throughout Victoria is quite well used by cyclists and by walking paths. This is a map showing where the galloping goose goes. Our site is this little, right where that little green part is. I think the green means, I can't read that, but the red I think is on roads. The green is on, the green is on sides of roads. The red is on paths. And I think the blue is on a boulevard or something like that. So it's a huge network. You can go a long, long way on this trail. This is the site. It goes up it's about that area there. The city owned it, City of Victoria, and the city also owns all these dockyards here. They want the dockyards, it's not part of the site, but they want it to be kept as a working dockyard. It's for small to medium-sized craft they fix there. Eventually there will be a pier that, and sort of a retail pier that would come down here, so there'll be a connection to the water. The water line used to cut in about here. This is all fill, dirt, contaminated fill. There's quite a drop from up here down to this road. This is about a 50-foot drop. So there's a really nice slope across the site. Overall, it's about 11 acres. The city owned the whole property, so they were able to put some fairly strong guidelines on the development. There was a competition for development teams to get the site, and we were the architectural part of that team. There was a whole series of mechanical, electrical, geotechnical consultants, plus a developer and a financial team to come up with the bid. And so we were selected, I think in 2004, I think that was one. And it's gone ahead quite quickly. So here you can see in the end, there will be about 1 million square feet of building built on the site. Of that, most of it, I'd say 2/3 would be be residential. Another 5% would be social housing. And then another about 25% would be sort of industrial or office related. So there's a good mix of uses there. So the idea is that it becomes its own village or node, in a sense, similar to what I was talking about in the earlier slides. So here's the site. There's primarily residential towers of about 8 stories, 8 to 14 stories, intermixed with some townhouses along the upper road here. It's called Tai Road. This lower portion is 3 to 4 stories, and it would be a mixed use. It would be light industry or commercial at grade with housing above it. So it's an interesting sort of mix of uses there. And then this is more of a commercial node with a hotel, office, and commercial space around a big courtyard. Some residential here, and a seniors building there. So the seniors is purposely put there so that they'd be looking over where the active areas are, so that there's some interest for them. And it's not very far for them to go to the commercial area. There's also a little odd bit of property up at this end of the site where a taller building would be. The idea is that there's a bridge here and another bridge at this end of the site. So there's tall buildings at the two ends of the sites to sort of anchor the project like bookends. They're in the range of about 14 stories. Victoria doesn't have very many tall buildings at all. So phase 1, this has been completed now. That's what's been awarded this LEED Platinum score. If you don't know what LEED means. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, something like that. Anyway, it's a way, a checklist, a way of measuring, comparing buildings in sustainable terms. So LEED, there's LEED certified, LEED silver, gold, and platinum. So platinum is the highest. So it's done really well. So that's complete. Phase 2, which is just shaded there, is almost complete. The roof's on, the windows are all in. It'll probably be another 4 or 5 months, and that'll be completed. These are both residential projects. There is some commercial at grade in this in phase 1. Phase 3 has been designed, and it's going through the city processing right now. And then phase 4 also has been designed, is going through the city processing. There's a little building down here. This is a little commercial building with a pub at the ground floor and 2 floors of office above. That's almost finished construction. And then this other thing, it's called CI2 for Commercial 2. That's been designed and it's going through the city processing, so it'll start construction soon. And it's actually a commercial building with some residential townhouses in behind, with a very muse-like connection to them. It's really mixing the uses a lot on the site. So the Galloping Goose Trail, there's this is Harbor Road, it's called. There's an existing bicycle path that connects on into a bicycle trail, and so we had to work quite closely with the local bicycling association to come up with how the street would work. We have to, this isn't a very highly trafficked, it won't be a very highly trafficked road, but there are, with the light industries, there will be some trucks and things like that. So we had to work out the crossings quite well with them. This is an older. And then there's some minor mews that are even more controlled and smaller scale throughout the site. And here you can see, this is one here. This is a little commercial building and some townhouses with a mews here where the residential parking would be off here. And then there's some vegetation to buffer the little commercial building. This is the little building that's going to have the pub on the basement, on the ground floor, that's under construction now. But then that view goes right up to Tyee Road. And then this is the feel of some of those areas where there's the light industry and the live work spaces above. So it's the idea is it's fairly dense, so that number of uses can happen in the spaces. This is the commercial roundabout area that has a presentation space in the middle of probably an amphitheater type space. And finally, on this Tyee Road, this is before this project started, it was a real rough road. It had 2 lanes in each direction. It's been now pulled down to just 1 lane in each direction, and it'll have a bike lane similar to Harbor Road, which is the lower one. It'll have a bike lane and parking on each side. And here's an original illustration of that. So this would be the bike lane, 2 lanes here. This would be the parking, another parking on the other side. And this is what has been built. This is phase 1 from here, that building, some townhouses in this building. So here you can see there's 1 lane this way, 1 lane that way, bike lane and parking, and the same thing happens on the other side. So you get it's really a very tight, compact street. It's really slowed the traffic down an awful lot there. This is this little commercial building I was saying that was being built. And then that's phase 2 down there. This was taken in the summer, so it's already topped off. Some of the things I'll point out, these big blue blinds are exterior blinds that don't usually get built in North America. They're usually on the interior side, but they help with the solar heat gain from the west side of the project dramatically. So some of the main features, there's bioswales to control the water runoff. This is an illustration. This photo here is probably taken about here looking that way. You can see this dock here has been put in, it's up there. So because this phase part here has not been built yet, there's sort of a temporary walkway that's been built here for the bicycle path. But here you can see the intricate design of all the landscape for these areas around the building throughout the site. So some of the sustainable features, the main thing is that the client, the developer, was really adamant about this idea of the triple bottom line. So most developments, really cost is the main issue. He wants to make a certain profit. This developer has a different view of things, and he feels that economics has to go with the natural ecology of the site plus the social aspect of the site. So he's adamant that there's a certain amount of social housing in every phase. There was 5% in the first phase, and that there's enough mixed use on the site to create a node that people will want to stay in. But then there's also an ecological element to everything, and I'll show you a few of the things as we go. And one thing that we found through projects that are about 100,000 or about 1 million square feet or larger is there's certain synergies to make things more economical. So we were able to provide district heat. So that means on site we're creating the heat for all the needs, and I'll show you that in a sec. And renewable energy through cogeneration. Plant. There's also a waste treatment plant on site. If you don't know, Victoria doesn't treat its waste. It sort of pushes it out into the sound down towards Seattle. So you'll be glad to know, though, that they're trying to sort that out, but that's going to be years and worth billions of dollars to fix. And also water treatment on site, as I've already talked about. So this is the biomass energy system to create heat for all of the buildings on site. There is a lot of, we looked at a number of different ways of creating energy, and this, because there's a lot of waste wood source in Victoria through some of the industries, there was a deal struck with some of them to be able to take that wood waste. They're building a biomass plant, which is due to be finished fairly soon and fired up, so that they'll bring in truckloads of this stuff and put it in the machine, and then it creates energy, primarily heat. And you can use that heat to do a number of things. Yeah. I'll just be a minute. I've been given the sign. Then there's a complex water treatment system on site. This is the machine up there is the sewage treatment plant. It's a very small building. It's probably only the size of this little podium here, and that's dealing with all the sewage through the whole site. There's also collecting water from rooftops throughout the site, cleaning it, and then using it for irrigation. This is that slide showing that. Because it was a brownfield, that was capping and dealing with the remediation of the hazardous material was important. Providing proper cycling and vehicular car sharing was important. There's a number of green issues. Native plants for landscape is right across the site. And then the stormwater management. This is something just on, okay. I've only got about four slides left. So on transportation, there's co-op cars in every building or a group of buildings, and there's even defined spaces for them. Then there's also, when the project continues on, gets built out further. There's going to be a mini transit system that will connect it to the downtown. There's a little harbor ferry that exists that will come to that dock once the project has got more density on it. There's the bicycle walkway trail. And then parking, we've tried to reduce the parking to the minimum that the developer and city could deal with. So this is the major one, is that we've been able to reduce the percentage of potable water used by 67% compared to a typical project, and 100% on-site wastewater treatment, and 100% use of rainwater for landscaping. And there's a series of technical building things that we did to make the buildings more energy efficient and using less harmful materials to the environment, such as bamboo, low-emitting paints, high fly ash and concrete, and using local materials. Here's some of the educational things we did on recycling. You get a little kit when you move in, the bucket with all the different things, and then you can buy into, you can have these different soaps and whatever delivered to your site. They'll organize that for you. You can have it set up. So the achievement is LEED Platinum. You can see we got, this is a comparison of the scores, our scores versus what's possible. We got full scores on everything other than just on materials, and that's because some of the materials like aluminum, vinyl, things like that, you just can't get locally. They had to be imported quite a bit. Green roofs, rainwater collection. We had fun with things. We used these rainwater spouts, so when it rains, they fall over the balcony rails into the pond, so you see it. This is how we've reached carbon neutrality. This is a typical building, and this is our building after we've done all of our green things. So we've reduced it from 100% to 42%. Then with our renewable energy element, we've been able to knock that down another 50% off of that. So we're 21% short. So what we do is we buy green power certificates. So that offsets all of the carbon used on the site. So that's how we're getting to carbon neutral on this project. And that's it.